Hey, it's Captain Matt, Boater's Secret Weapon, and today I want to share questions to ask when you're shopping for a listing online. So you find a boat, you're like, oh, this looks like it could be a good one. Instead of sending the, is this available? Ask some questions that are going to give you some valuable information. Is this a boat that you want to go see? Is this a boat that's worth spending time on? So the first one is, hey, can you confirm the year, make, and model of the boat, as well as the engine and the trailer if they have one? It's amazing how often you'll find somebody that they don't know exactly what boat they have. They think it's this model, they think it's that year, and it's not right. It's even more common with the engine. They almost always think they got a bigger engine than what they do if they're off. And then, do you have the title for each of them? So in most states, you're gonna have the boat's gonna be registered, an outboard motor is gonna be registered, and the trailer is gonna be registered. So you may have three separate on a single engine boat. Every engine, if it's twin or trips, would have its own title. Now, that's not for every state, but in most states, if it's a stern drive or an inboard, you don't have the title for the engine because that's considered part of the boat. So that's number one. Number two, hey, why are you selling? That's going to give you some insight onto, are they not using it? Is there some issue? Maybe some financial things. Maybe it'll give you some interesting information that will be valuable to help you. Number two, how long have you owned the boat? So did you just buy it and you're getting rid of it right away? Well, maybe that's a red flag. Or, hey, we're the original owners of this boat. We bought it brand new. Perfect. That's a great situation. Is there anything on the boat that you know doesn't work properly? What you're doing is you're kind of putting it on the seller to tell you anything that they know that's not working. Any rips in the upholstery, anything with the engine, anything in the electronics that's not working, anything on the trolling motor or the live wells or the pumps that aren't working. What you're doing there is you're getting that information up front so you know what you're walking into. And also, if you get to the boat and they said, no, everything's working great, and you get to the boat and it's not working, well, that's a red flag. And what else have they told you is this is the way it is, but the reality is it might be a little bit different. Maybe they're not as trustworthy as you would hope them to be. Another red flag. Have you done any modifications since you've owned the boat? And then a follow-up is, who did them? So what you're trying to find here is, hey, listen, we know that if a good marine tech does work, it's probably done right. But sometimes if an owner puts in a stereo system or added a battery switch, or they souped it up somehow, they flashed the engine to get more horsepower out, well, guess what? It's more likely that that's gonna have increased issues that come along with it. Wiring issues are a nightmare on a boat. If you have any electrical issues, it's really, really difficult on a boat. So finding out what they've done and who've done it, now you can check and you really pay attention to those modifications to make sure, hey, they put a wakeboard on it, or wakeboard tower on, they did it themselves. Okay, let's make sure that they backplated it and it's solid and there's no spider cracking and there's no structural damage because they did it wrong. Next, when's the last time you ran the boat in the water? Not just fired it up on a hose, but actually took it out, put it under load, and ran the boat. What you want to find out there is this a boat that has been used consistently, or is this a boat that sat for 6 months or a year or more? Not that it's the kiss of death, but it's another red flag if they haven't run that boat for a long time. And also, things break on boats. So if they haven't run it for that season, well, there's likely some things that aren't operating properly on that boat that the owner doesn't even know about yet, and you need to do an extra detailed inspection. Who does the maintenance on the engines, and do you have service records? I love this question because if they don't have those service records, it kind of devalues the boat without really saying anything. If they do, it's awesome because now you know what the history of that boat looks like. You know that they did the oil, gear lube, and impeller changes on time. You know that they changed the spark plugs, or you know they did the timing belt if that's necessary on the boat. You know what they've done. They've winterized it properly every season. And that adds a tremendous amount of value to the boat, which is awesome. If they don't have that, Then you need to ask, well, what service have you done and what specifically did you do? Because if they say, oh, we winterized it, well, that could be as much as they drained the water out of the block and that was it. Or they drained the water, they treated the fuel, they pulled the battery, they ran the pink stuff through, the biodegradable antifreeze through, they changed the oil, changed the gear lube, and every other year they did the impeller. Well, that's a lot better than just draining the water out. So you want to ask those questions. What would you take for the boat? So they've got it listed for $75,000, for $50,000, for $10,000. Just, hey, what would you take for the boat? Get an idea of, are they willing to negotiate? You're not saying you're gonna buy it, you're not saying you're not gonna buy it, you're not saying their price is too high. You're just asking what they would take, and you might get a concession there to know they're super motivated. Or, hey, I'm not budging. Okay, great. Now you know that going in based on where your budget needs to be. Has the boat been run in saltwater? If you're kind of near the coast, I always prefer a boat that's a freshwater boat. It's had an easier life than a saltwater boat. If you're in a saltwater environment, that may not be an option. Just be extra diligent on the inspections, pulling the cowling, looking at all the cracks and crevices, know for sure that they maintained it, and know you're gonna have some additional maintenance because the saltwater environment is much harsher. But you want to know that, especially if you're, like I'm in Charlotte, North Carolina, so I'm 3 hours from the coast. It's very, very likely that they trailered that boat, ran down to the coast for a vacation every year, and I want to know that. I also want to look for telltale signs of rust, corrosion starting, because they don't always know how to care for their boat in a saltwater environment, like if they were in Charleston or Wilmington. And then, if yes, we did run it in saltwater, hey, what's your cleanup routine look like after each use, okay? What I'm looking for there is, do they have a cleanup routine? Do they talk about flushing the engine? Do they talk about using salt away? Do they talk about rinsing down the boat with fresh water and washing it every time? Or rinsing down the trailer and the hubs and the axle, getting all the salt off that if there's a trailer involved? And now you've got a sense for, okay, it was in salt, but it was well taken care of in salt. A boat that's not been taken care of in saltwater is likely going to be a disaster for you. A boat that's been well taken care of could have a ton of great years left in it. So I like those questions when you're inquiring about a used boat online, just to get a sense, is this a boat that I want to spend the time to go check out and make sure it's a good option? Check out the Boat Buyers Toolkit. If you don't have it already, just go to boatbuyerstoolkit.com. If you found this valuable, give it a thumbs up. And if you got a question or another question that you would ask, throw that in the comments. I'd appreciate it. Remember, life truly is better on a boat.